Okay, looking at how the current uncertainties are impacting our economy at the moment, and the UAE's second-hand car market is certainly experiencing shifts in buyer behaviour and pricing patterns as regional tensions influence consumer purchasing decisions. Let's get the thoughts now of Deal Drive. It's a software developer and service provider for professional car dealers in various countries. They help to increase, well, not just the efficiency, but also the profitability of their businesses. But let's see how profitable things are at the moment. We've got Kamran Abdollahi, who is the head of revenue at Deal Drive. He's been kind enough to join us live here in the studio. Kamran, lovely to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us live on the Business Breakfast.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
So, give us a little bit of a snapshot, if you can, Cam, in terms of where we are with the second-hand car market in the UAE right now. I suppose we have seen a booming market in recent years. Certainly at the beginning of this year we were talking about that. What about the last few weeks? What impacts it had?
Absolutely. So you did mention sort of the volatility or shift in the market. To say everything is the same would definitely be a lie. Of course, there has been impacts, I think, like almost any other industry in the past few weeks. And what we have been seeing is a decline in delistings across the market, across the major classifieds, which would indicate a decline in sales. If we would put numbers against that, I think the major part of it was what we would call a temporary shock from buyer behavior, which was in the first 10 days of March, right after the escalations. And that was about 20% fall in delistings, or again, it could correlate to sales based on the data that we see. However, one thing that we did predict, even speaking with dealers, is that is a sort of temporary drastic shock in the beginning, and that while that decline could continue, but the pace of it would definitely stabilize and it would slow down the pace of decline. And then looking at it on a complete month-by-month basis, already March is almost over, we see about 28% decline versus February. However, with that said, that seems like an alarming number. However, when we look at sort of the resilience of the market, which is something that we've seen again across a lot of industries in the UAE, is, you know, if we look at, let's say, the average price of used cars across all the different categories, the decrease that we see is a fall of just 3% March versus February. And when we actually spoke with dealers, we had a roundtable about 2 weeks ago with them. They said that a decrease of 3 to 5% is negligible. In summer season, that decrease is more than 5%.
So what are the sellers telling you when it comes to pricing? Are they having to adjust their expectations at the moment, or given those sort of surprising numbers for sellers, are they holding steady on prices?
Absolutely. Very good question. So, yes, so we did speak with dealers and it very matched with what we were seeing. It wasn't more about pricing of cars, but it was more about changing the stock mix that they have. So buyer behavior, looking at it, what happened is that people still need cars. People still need to buy cars. There's still people that are looking to replace their old cars or maybe have come newly into the country. So that's still there. The demand is still there, and they were estimating it about 75%, 70 to 75% of what it was. And that demand is more serious than before. So when someone currently walks into a showroom, they really want to buy a car and they're not just window shopping. So that's a good thing. But in terms of dealer behavior, seller behavior, and what they need to do, they have moved to being more cautious in terms of the cars that they buy, because buyers are more cautious on the cars that they are going to buy. And what I mean by that is they're looking less at luxury cars and more at mid-market and premium cars, as an instance. They're looking at cars to get them from point A to point B. So when it came down to really pricing of these cars, what the dealer said is what is really, really important right now, absolutely, it's adjusting prices to the market. Before, they might have done it on a weekly basis, but right now what is important is doing it absolutely on a daily basis. And that's exactly where Deal Drive comes in. We provide data on a daily basis, and the dealers can actually use that, not just across the market, but specific cars based on the year, mile, model, make, condition, trim of the car, what this car should be priced at, how long does it take to sell based on the historical data, based on the supply and demand of the market, and how they should price, how much they should buy this car at, and how much potential profit can they make off it.
With the current situation, and obviously we're seeing the supply, but also the price of fuel for combustion engines going up the world over at the moment. We are about to have, of course, our petrol prices looked at here in the region on the 1st of the next month, so coming up later on this week. Is that prompting more people to look at EVs, or is it too early to say?
Definitely too early to say. So I'll make a few comments here. Definitely too early to say, firstly. Second point, will it, in the short term, point people more towards EV or even consider EV? Definitely yes. But will the number be drastic? Absolutely not. And I can back that up again with numbers that we have. The used car market specifically, what we look at, we do hear a lot about EV. However, when we look at the actual number of EV cars, purely EV cars on the market, it only accounts for 1 to 2% in UAE of the used car market, which is nothing, which is much less, very surprising than what we see. Include plug-in hybrids and mild hybrids, and that number comes up to about 5 to 6%. And one thing I would like to note that, in terms of increasing fuel prices, let's go back to 2022, where there was a peak, a surge in fuel prices here in UAE, where it was almost double of what it is now. Now it's about 2.4 dirhams per liter. At that time, it went all the way up to 4.6, 4.8 dirhams per liter. And that happened already. We've seen that happen. And it wasn't just 1 month. It was over an entire year, 2022, 2023. But again, yes, did it move some people to EV? Correct. But was it a drastic change? Absolutely not. The used car market in UAE is overwhelmingly still petrol driven.
Just to that end, and we've run out of time, so basically, last 30 seconds or so, just a bit of advice for you. I mean, a lot of people will look at what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz and supplies and the logistics lines, etc. So is there enough supply in the market? What's your advice to people at the moment, especially if they are thinking about buying or rather selling a second-hand car in Dubai right now?
Absolutely. First part on the seller's market, so dealer's market. One thing that we have seen and again heard from top dealers what they're doing, definitely not cutting back on spending or purchasing. In fact, looking at the data, March versus Feb, what we saw is that dealer stock across the market has increased by about 6%. So while we saw that sales have been decreasing, actually dealers are continuing to purchase because they're taking advantage of the situation. They're getting good deals on the market, so they are stocking up. Another thing that could happen, and the reason that they might be doing that, and we again saw this during COVID and post-COVID, is used car pricing actually going up. So logistics, imports of new cars, which might get affected, actually would cause used car prices to go up. So that's on the dealer's market. So definitely not cut back on marketing or spending or even purchasing. The ones that will lose right now is the ones that will stay and not do anything and just wait for the market to magically get back up. So keep buying, but buy more cautiously, the same way the end customers are buying more cautiously. You're still going to make your 10 to 15% margin profit. And on the seller's market, it's what the dealers say. The buyer behavior is changing, which is, you need a car. Maybe you don't need to buy a luxury car over 300,000 dirhams. Maybe you need to look at the mid-market to premium segment to get you from point A to point B in this uncertainty.
Kamran, really appreciate it. Loving the numbers. Thank you so much indeed for the analysis as well. Kamran Abdollahi is the head of revenue, Deal Drive. He's been kind enough to join us in studio to talk about the second-hand car market. So our thanks to Cam and all the team at Deal.